In this short video, I'm just going to give you a bit more information about the OpenStreetMap data model so that you don't get too confused or mess things up, because OpenStreetMap can be quite confusing. Now, earlier on in the first video, I showed you there are two sorts of features. There are points, like the solar panel, and we talked about areas, like some of these buildings and shops. There are actually three, and I'm going to give you the slightly more technical names for them. The first is something called a node, which is a point like this, which has the solar panel. But nodes can also just be little red dots like this. Nodes basically just at one point in the local area. And they're useful for describing things that don't really have any particular dimensions, like cycle parking, or a gate, or a bench. The second type are what are called ways. Now, ways are basically just lines that are made up when you join together the dots, or the nodes. So this way here describes the residential road Brunel Close. So you've got 1, 2, 3. In order to add a way, you would just start clicking, clicking, and then on the last one, double click. And now you've got a way, and we can describe it. We might say that this is a little stream. Once it doesn't exist, I'll delete it. The third type is an area, which is where you start drawing a way, but you close it in order to create something like building, this building here, or car parking down outside the supermarket. And areas are useful where you want to describe the building or the exact dimensions of the space, which is useful for something like a park, because you don't just want to know that a park is there, but you want to know is that a very small park or a large metropolitan park. Now, ways can be changed by selecting the way and then just moving the nodes around like so. So you just click and hold and drag it. You can change the shape of that way. Again, if you've made a mistake, just click undo. The same goes for areas. You just select it and then move the nodes around. With nodes, it's very simple. You just select the node and then drag the node where you want it to go. There's no hard and fast rule about whether things have to be added as nodes or ways or areas. Just, I think, use a bit of common sense. It's obviously more useful and helpful to add a shop as a way, for example, rather than a building. It's also useful just to check before you're adding something whether the information you want to add is actually already there, or some of it is. So, for example, if I wanted to say that this building, which is currently an estate agent called Acorn, has actually changed hands and now it's no longer that, but it's a cafe for something, then I could just look down here, food and drink, and then drag the cafe icon over here, drop it, and say that's now a cafe. But then we've got information both about the estate agent and the cafe. Or it might be that it's a building that currently has no information about it, like this one. I want to drag it over and say it's a cafe. But it would be much more useful to first of all select the object that we're talking about, and then go here and change the information to say that it's a cafe or whatever it is. I'll leave that for a moment. The last thing I want to show you is that this editor makes it all quite simple. So you just see here all the information in these little boxes and you can edit them, and it's quite straightforward. At the bottom here, you might notice that it says Advanced. If you click on the Advanced tab, then it takes you to this table of information. And this is really the guts, or the underside of OpenStreetMap. So everything in OpenStreetMap is tagged. And tagging is where you simply add information with a key and a value. So it's a very simple system where we start with saying this is some sort of amenity, and the type of amenity is bicycle parking. You might want to add some more information about what sort of bicycle parking. Well, it stands. Source is, well, where did we come by this information? From a photograph. And if we select other objects in here, then we'll get more similar information. You can see here all that information in raw form. And it's sometimes useful to have a look at that if you select something, and it might say that it doesn't know what sort of object it is. I think there are some unknown objects down here. So I've selected this node, which is shown by a blue circle, and it says unknown. And if we go to advanced, we can see that it's actually indicating that there's a particular entrance to Belvedere Road at this point of the building. So in case you, before you overwrite and change something, it's worth just having a look at that. The last thing I want to show you are these tools down here, which you can move around or you can get rid of. If I select this one-way road, you'll notice that this arrow here is pointing down to indicate that the road is pointing in that direction. If I were to click it, it would reverse the direction. You can click it back and forth. Normally this isn't particularly relevant, because most roads aren't one way. If I select this, for example, it says it's pointing in this direction, but it's not really important which way it's pointing. But if I were to set one way to say, yes, it's one way, then suddenly that becomes very relevant. Let's change that back to two-way. Right. Ooh. You can also, with this, as I mentioned earlier, you can delete things. You can split something in half. So if we wanted to split this road in half, maybe at this point, you just select the node you want and press cut, and that's split in half. So you can change this to say that one half of it is one way and the other half of it isn't. You can also join things back together. You can straighten ways out, so make it a completely straight line. You can take a building. If I were to draw a building and I want it to be a really square shape, but I'm not very good at drawing it, you can do this to make it right angled, make it nice and neat. You can also, if I tried to draw a circle, I'm not very good at drawing circles, and you press this, and it will make it into a perfect circle for you. So it's worth using those tools sometimes, just to get what you're trying to do to be nice and neat. That's all. Thanks for watching.